I thought that the newspaper, I thought that the Zhongguo Shibao and Lianhebao had that information in it to, I mean, how they interpreted it may be something else, but I'm sorry, at least they would have had a chronicle of the day's events. I mean, if you just look at these as to who said what on the day, on that day, by hour, or the fact that these underground radios and these trucks with broadcast machines on them were out sweeping around, fanning around the central and southern parts of the main cities. The fact that the radios would in that whole evening would go on to celebrate the not celebrate, that's not the right word, but well, anyway, ask the question. I just bumped it.
These points that you mentioned, these happenings on March 19th, are not generally known on the green side. So therefore, these protests in their minds have been painted as very irrational. But yet people on the blue side, more well-informed people on the blue side, are aware of what happened that day. And this is not 2/28/1947. This is just
This is March 19th.
A few weeks ago. So
Yeah.
and yet information is still seems to be very sharply divided.
Well, that's very interesting. I have not combed the media, the journals and the newspapers to sort of see how March 19th was recorded or at least factually stated or interpreted. My information, I have to admit, comes from people on the blue side who simply state very baldly, hour by hour, who said what or who came out in the president's office to say this. Who was saying what on the radio, who was saying what on television. Chen Shui-bian comes out for roughly 11 o'clock that evening on February on a videotape. That's all we see of him the whole day is a videotape. I had thought that these recorded events put out by the blue side were credible. And if my claim is right, that they are credible, then they simply don't explain a lot of things. And I'm also puzzled by the fact that one sees now, apparently, information being gathered and clustering into two different political groups' hands and then being interpreted according to whatever viewpoints or whatever biases or whatever is helping them process that information. But clearly what we need now is an objective historian to put together the events of Friday and subject these events to a cold, objective analysis as to what is happening and maybe venture to explain why it's happening. I think we desperately need this now.
It's from the internet sites that I've read, they all lean strongly towards the point of view that the blue camp their allegations have very little credibility. This is what is being printed out there in English. And I've also been told as of March 20th that a lot of magazines and newspapers have been steered towards the green side through the executive powers. That they've been pressured to, like I said, they can't get if they print if they don't print what they want them to print, it's like they're barred from getting the advertisements that they need to survive. So the consensus on some people on the blue side is that the society is not really a fair, it's not truly an truly open media. they feel that the media has been
Tampered with,
yeah,
tainted.
So that is why the information sent to the on these English internet sites are all steered against the blue camp, and I've read them. They seem pretty heavily biased against the blue camp. It's the only points written by the blue camp on these sites are the weakest and most ridiculous arguments, and all the strong ones, like some of the ones you pointed out on March 19th, are just, they're not mentioned anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's apparently very difficult information to get, and
That's I find that extraordinary, and that does raise some real questions as to what is going on in the Taiwan media, and to what extent the Taiwan media is being controlled by the government. I just have not seen good objective analysis of this either inside Taiwan or outside Taiwan. So that doesn't mean it doesn't exist because I haven't seen it. But this is an issue really reminds me of basically of Ba, where you had a certain body of information controlled by the nationalist government. And it put out its own interpretation and its own spin on what that event was all about. And here, and we don't really learn about that event until almost 50 years later, when we can suddenly start to gather facts in a more objective way and put them to objective interpretation. But I'm struck here too that the government apparently does have a growing control over the Taiwan media to be able to at least limit the correct recording of specific events on March 19th, Friday. And if I'm right, that's very disturbing for Taiwan democracy. Very disturbing. If in effect we don't even know and cannot agree on event by event which happened on Friday. I mean, if you get certain people quoted at certain times of the day on Friday, and that is either not stated or it's said to be false, we've got to find some means of finding out what happened that day. We just simply have to, because the fate of Taiwan democracy is hanging on the truthfulness and objectivity by which that election is reported and concluded. If we're going to be kept in the dark and arguing back and forth, that speaks very poorly for Taiwan democracy in terms of not having a clear-cut statement of who said what, who did what on Friday. It doesn't have to be the degree of truth as to saying that about where the bullet landed or who fired the bullet or anything like that. But there are a number of other statements and events that occurred that tend to suggest that this election was weird, that the day before the election was weird, and misinformation was put out there deliberately by the Green camp. I think that's more and more the conclusion that I'm reluctantly coming to. And I'm trying to be objective as I can be, believe me. People reported hearing on the radio, and people in the streets reported listening to broadcasts in southern and central Taiwan of statements being made that there was a communist blue camp KMT conspiracy. And this conspiracy was pointed to an alleged attempt to assassinate the president and vice president. Now that's disinformation. A lot of people claim they heard that. So that information was going on. It was being put out to the Taiwan people.
I believe that Taiwanese Americans here who are constantly searching for information about the election and everything, just it has that somehow that has not been disseminated here
I guess
to
it
the
hasn't.
States, to the States.
There's no doubt that it has not.
So
And it's amazing how you can put a spin in direct media information in different ways.
how important is it for the role of the media in a democracy?
Well, we know now it's becoming more and more important, terribly important. And if somebody cooks up a series of events that seem to have occurred on Friday, and they're not reported accurately, or they're just brushed away under the table, that's control of information, and that's providing bad or disinformation. And I mean, that's what the KMT did for decades in handling Ba. And I can say that because that's what happened. And I would like to be able to think I could say event A, B, C, D happened on Friday, March 19th. And it's too weird to believe that something wasn't going on behind the scenes to generate disinformation.
Well, apparently it's been I feel that it's been well hidden, at least as far as to their followers. They don't.
They've succeeded. They've succeeded. Yep. Well, the KMT succeeded too. And political parties in power in the kind of political system that still exists in Taiwan, which is still only partly democratic. Because once you can stack a government with virtually all of your people, which is what Chen Shui-bian was able to do after May 2000, he could put his people in the state radio broadcast television companies. He put them in the election committee. He put them in the judiciary. And this is what, of course, has polarized Taiwan society. People know this. People don't like it. Others know it, and they like it because they want their party in power.
Well,
It's a sad day for Taiwan democracy, I tell you. And we'll learn more on May 20th as to what this president is up to.
yeah,
But it's clear to me that all the president's remarks since election day till now, he has not made any effort to reach out as a leader of all the people of Taiwan to initiate a coming together and a healing process. He has blustered and huffed and puffed about what a great democracy Taiwan has and how he and his party are leading that democracy. But I have to say that the way that election was conducted, and the way information was controlled, and the way information was disseminated, that Taiwan's democracy really took a big hit. It's mortally wounded. And that's why people are cynical, and that's why people don't trust this government.
there seem to be two modes of thinking. A, Taiwan is finished.
Finished
Finished.
as a democracy?
No, just period. Like the economy, everything about it is just
No
going down
hope. No
yeah,
hope.
Yeah. Let's move out of Taiwan.
Yeah. Well, that's
And-
going to happen.
Or B, democracy is not doing too bad because once we get rid of the KMT,
Yeah, we
they're
can-
the problem. Then then things will heal, and let's wait for the KMT to destroy
Yeah.
themselves. And this is a young democracy; it's not doing too bad, you know. So that's two ways of thinking.
Yeah, I think the second group that you alluded to is deluding themselves, and they're buying into a fantasy that by winning an election, by breaking the rules and doing it dishonestly, that doesn't matter for future democratic change. I beg to differ with that conclusion. I think once you've broken the rules and you've cheated, and a lot of people know about it, it catches up with you eventually. It eventually catches up with you. Just as R.R. Bach caught up with the nationalist government eventually.